The veil is gone. It's down. But what does that mean? And what comes in now? There are great beings returning to our plane. We're going to be talking about that. But before I talk to you about the beings that are coming in right now, because that is going to shift something in your heart, you're going to feel ushy, gushy, and mushy as I talk to you about the incoming beings. But before we get there, let's talk about how they're coming in, why they're coming in, and what they're coming in through. Well, of course, that is the veil. You've heard this before, right? You've heard about people who might pass away and they say, well, I saw beyond the veil. You might hear conversations about the other side of the veil. And we've always imagined, right, in the false matrix, that what people were talking about was the other side of life, like a heavenly world. We thought that was the other side of the veil. No, what's on the other side of the veil is the divine matrix. The divine matrix, another word for that is the organic universe. That means the original creation template. The realm that we've been living on has been encapsulated inside a veil of forgetfulness, distraction, illusion, and fragmentation. And in that veil, well, it's kind of like more than a veil, because a veil you can still have light coming through. The veil was such a solid structure that it was more like a quarantine zone. Think of it more like a wall, like a thick wall, rather than what your mind will conjure when you talk about a veil. Now, spoiler alert, the veil is so thin. It's threadbare in places, and to many people on the planet right now, it's just totally non-existent. Why are different people having different experiences of the veil? Okay. We really need to understand the dynamic of this thing. First of all, why was it put there in the first place? Well, the archons who established the false matrix needed a place to keep the false matrix separate from the organic universe, the divine matrix, that it had come from. In order to maintain that veil of separation, they established a frequency net. That's what the veil is. And it's interwoven into Earth's magnetic field. Now, as the magnetic field drops, which is what's taking place right now, that's what is allowing in more impact from the solar field around us. It's our thinning veil. It's our thinning magnetic field, because remember, the veil was interwoven into that. But it's not just Earth's magnetic field dropping that allows more of the interaction with that cosmic light to come in. It is way deeper than that, because now I'm going to talk to you about where the veil actually is. And at this point, you're probably going, but Carrie, you just told me, right? You just told me. You said it surrounds our realm, which kind of conjures this image that it's out there around the Earth, right? So think of planet Earth, and you could even extend that vision, in fact, to encapsulate most of the solar system that we've lived in. Not all, but most of it. And you could say, yeah, this is the hijacked realm. And by the way, there are many hijacked realms. So you wouldn't be wrong if that was your impression, that the veil is out there. It's a veil of forgetfulness and separation around our world in some way. Come closer to home. Here's the veil. It's inside of us. And what we do is we generate the projection and we reflect what we are. We project from the inside our reality. So when on the inside of ourselves, we feel fragmentation, we feel disconnection, we feel the illusion of separation, which every human being alive does and has, and to varying degrees is validating that experience of separation. We feel loneliness. We feel disconnected to the very source that we come from. We feel complete forgetfulness to our own infinite nature. We feel complete segregation to the truth of who we really are. We rub our chins and say, what is my purpose? Who am I really? Because we are separate from the true self. That's where the veil is. The veil is an imprint that lives inside the cellular matrix, the body. And we project that inner imprint into the external world. And that's why there's a veil out there. But its actual origin, come reel it in, its actual origin is right here. It's back home. It's inside of each and every single one of us. And it's at this point where people will normally say something like, but I'm just little old me. I'm just one little person. I surely can't make a difference or have an impact in this great big world that we live in of 8 billion people. Oh, baby, oh, baby, oh. You have more than an impact. You are like a contagion in the best possible sense of the word. You are a frequency of light, and the nature of light is that it ripples. So when one person, begins to delve into deeper depths, forgets about what everybody else out there is doing, and stops basing their lives on what everybody else is doing, and stops waiting for what everybody else is doing because, they got to catch up. When one person gets brave enough to say, the world's going to do what the world's going to do, I am here for my process, my ascension, my evolution, and they begin to connect beyond the brain. In other words, beyond the mental realm that we've been locked into. Because a big part of the purpose of the veil was to lock us into the false matrix, which is a mental realm. And within that realm, we lose access to our multidimensionality, which is why we lose access to the true self. But the moment we start to reclaim, reignite, reconnect, begin this process of moving beyond the safe place, the known place of the mental realm, and we start processing and feeling energetically, we start recovering our energetic self and enlivening the multidimensional truth of who we are, then our own inner veil of separation begins to melt, begins to dissolve. And that, my darlings, can you see now, is why people experience the veil differently. For all intents and purposes, that external veil, which was once part of a massive, coordinated, concerted broadcast system that we called the false matrix. It was one broadcast signal. Round about 2012. What the heck is that? Let's try again. I told you time's gone a bit weird, right? But that was a bit too weird. Round about 2012. What happened was the galactics began to see the injustice of the situation we were in, that we couldn't reach that broadcast signal to take it down, let alone comprehend that it was even there. So they took down the external broadcast signal, knowing that the real work was going to be on the inside. That this was going to result in that external validation of the broadcast signal, which was the veil, coming down. But now it was going to be each and every single one of us from the inner level that was going to become responsible for our own inner separation, fragmentation, and bringing that back into cohesion and wholeness. You guys, think about how everything in the human body is divided. Think about how the left hemisphere of the brain and the right hemisphere of the brain separate. Think about most of our organs. They are divided. They are separated. Think about the way that we conduct ourselves in society, the way that we think about ourselves. We say, my head and my heart. We're in this continual tug of war between two sides. Even if you watch the news, even if you look at politics, even if you look at just life in general, it's, should I do this or that? Do I believe in this or that? It's black or it's white, it's yin or it's yang, because this is the nature of the false matrix that we were born to. As soon as the alchemy of cohesion takes place here on the inside, that veil drops and what begins, my loves? What begins to come in? Okay, you asked the question. Now we're going to talk about it. This is where, for me and my heart, this is where it gets so exciting. It was around about, 2-3-ish weeks ago that I began to gain a sense of a presence coming into our solar system. The being, this is a celestial being of gargantuan galactic proportions, at the very literal sense. This being I want to describe to you as follows. When I first became aware of it, okay, let me give you the visual. This was the visual. When I first became aware of it, undulating waves, like a shimmery light wave. And as I saw that shimmery light wave, it reminded me of when we were kids and we blew bubbles. Remember those little soap bubbles that we blew? It looks almost similar to that. There is this, can I say bubble-like? And you know what I mean now when I say bubble-like. I'm talking about those bubbles that we used to blow, but it's not perfectly round. It's this long, sprawling, massive consciousness. Shimmering light, radiant, reflective, conscious, alive, omnipotent, loving, so wholesome, so nurturant. And this plasma being is coming into our solar system, and as it does, as it waves, because that's how it moves into the solar system, its size becomes apparent. And then as I began to explore the size, I thought to myself, this thing is so big, it's kind of, could it be it's bigger than the earth itself? And I realized, oh baby, it's not only bigger than the earth itself, it's bigger than the sun itself. It's bigger than the solar system itself. Think of it as this sprawling consciousness that when you get closer to it, and it's almost like you're getting to connect with it, as I'm doing right now. I'm speaking to you and I'm feeling the presence of this plasma being. As you connect to it, it's kind of like you can see into the plasma field or in through the plasma field, and then the magic happens, because then you see that contained within this plasma being are multiple, uncountable orbs. These are beings of plasma light, and certain people have already begun to feel the presence of this plasma being. In fact, in my online community, it was, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, we did an amazing activation with that plasma being, feeling the presence of that plasma being. And in our upcoming energy call, you guys, that is call number 222. Wait for it, 222. That call, we're going to do a huge activation, another one with that plasma being. So if you want to work at that energetic level, then the details are here on screen for you, and you can join us in the Plasma Light Tribe. But that's only if you really want to dive deep into the energy work. What I'm presenting to you here is the head level, the information level, so that you can hold this in your heart and just realize, wow, the troops have arrived. Reinforcement is here. Why though? Why? Okay, so hopefully I've done a little bit of justice to the presence of this being, but why is this being coming in? Because here's the answer. We summoned it. We called it. Now, no, nobody went, hello, plasma being, excuse me, could you, this way, please, this way. No, we didn't call it as in we knew what we were calling. We called for help. We called for assistance. We called for reinforcement. Some of us did it from a very dejected place. In other words, just exhaustion, just depletion, just I can't anymore. God, please help me. Universe, please support me. Hey guides, hey angels, hey higher self. For the sake of love, for the sake of humanity, I need support. And, okay, so there's two parts. There's the request. And I am willing to meet that request in a higher level of personal responsibility. In other words, I'm stepping into a new level of creative responsibility in my life, wherein I stop blaming life and I stop out of the victimhood and I stop feeling like I'm in the self-pity mode. Oh, my life is so hard. And I begin to ask questions like, what can I do to shift my reality? So this isn't like, oh, I've got to do it alone, but it's more like, I understand that I have to step into a unification within me, an empowerment within me. And when I do that, then and only then am I beginning to declare myself as an equal to the support that's coming in. That step is so massive, you guys. Without this step of our own personal elevation, what would happen is that plasma being and the wake of the elemental kingdom that comes with it, we're going to talk a little bit more hold on, that's coming, the fairies, the dragons, etc. We're going to have that conversation in a little bit. They would never have been able to come in if we were holding an old mindset of subservience, wherein we're waiting for the savior because we can't save ourselves. We're just these lowly humans. If we were sitting in that mindset, if we were on our knees praying instead of standing up and declaring that we're ready and we're worthy and we're willing and wanting and waiting, if we didn't stand up at that level, or at least a heightened level, this was not about we had to be more perfect and get it totally right. This was about we had to start orientating ourselves towards a higher frequency wherein we can begin the process of getting up off of our knees. Instead of saying, oh, we need these beings to come fix everything and save us. We need God. We need the Christ consciousness. We need these external saviors to do everything for us that we can't do. That's when we would have lost ascension. And I know a couple of you just had a hair-raising moment. Is she saying that we can't ask God for help? No. What she's saying is, we're here for a reason, and it's not to be rescued. It's for us to self-realize that we are directly connected to the universe itself, that we are the wholeness of the universe in human form. That we are extensions of the great supreme creator of all that is, that we call God and many other names. We are not just a part of that. We are a living expression of that wholeness. And as such, that realization begins the journey home. So look at that. The journey home begins on the inside. And when it begins on the inside, then the external universal support can come in. When we're on our knees, I'm just a lowly human, I can't do anything, come fix it for me. That's the antithesis of empowerment. That's the antithesis of us standing in our sovereignty. We're here not to be saved, but to be the saviors, each and every single one of us. That is why, if we look at biblical text, a lot of that biblical text has been manipulated, and a lot of seeds of truth remain in there. And one of those seeds of truth are where the being that was Christ said the following words, I'll be back, right? Good old, there's an Arnold Schwarzenegger moment, I'll be back, that's sitting in the seeds of consciousness of that biblical text. We are the return of Christ. Each and every single one of us is the potentiality of that Christ consciousness return. That is the self-realization that we came for. We're not waiting for God or the universe or an external savior to come save us. Those externals are waiting, in a sense, for us to save ourselves, to meet ourselves at the place that they can enter, that they can come in. We are the invitation. We are the portal. We are the opening. That's how powerful we are. Now, what else comes in through all of this thinning of the veil are the elemental beings. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, oh, Gary, you're so silly. I've been connecting with the Devic kingdom, which is part of the elemental kingdom. These are the small folk, right? Like the fairies and the sprites and these little beings that generally we see as orbs. If you've ever seen orbs in photographs, you're looking at a fairy. Normally, they're generally part of the elemental kingdom. And that orb, that glowing ball of light that we see, is their light body. They travel exceptionally fast, way too fast most of the time for our eyes to even catch, but sometimes on the odd photograph we might get a whiff or a glimpse of their presence. They have always been here, that's true. But think of the veil as the wall, and think of them on the other side of the wall. Some people always had it in them to see through that wall. There were like little holes in the wall, and people were peeking through and going, right. Yes, I can see, I can feel, I can connect. And some of the time it would be a little bit elusive, and, you know, a person might then go into craving, longing, yearning. Why don't you show yourselves again? Because we were there on the other side of that wall, looking for the hole in the wall, the opening in the wall that we could see peer through into the divine matrix, those odd glimpses. Now, As that veil thins and thins and thins to the point that it's either threadbare or completely gone, depending on where you are at the inner level, it's as if the beings who were in another room, so to speak, right, the elemental kingdom, that wall has dissolved. The other room is now part of the same big room that we're living in, part of the same realm that we're living in. All that means is we will begin to maybe get a better visual on them, but certainly get a better connection with them. And I know where people are going to fall with this. I know where people are going to stumble with this. And I don't want you to stumble, so I'm going to share this with you. They're going to fold their arms and they're going to go, seeing is believing. And I haven't seen anything, therefore it's not real. This is a great, and you can say those words and you can believe those thoughts. I'm not telling you you're not allowed to, and I'm not trying to convince you. I'm simply saying if you do, what you're doing is you're narrowing your field of experience right down into the false matrix. Because what the false matrix is based on is what the mind can comprehend and what the eyes can see. What the eyes can see is less than 1%, and I mean way less than 1% of the visible light spectrum. So no. The Devic kingdom, the elemental kingdom, the plasma beings, they're not going to be visible in the light spectrum that we are used to operating in. We, in a sense, are tuning ourselves, if we're ready, willing, and able, tuning ourselves into their bandwidth, their frequency. And when we do that, it's because we've taken more personal responsibility. We've really stepped into our own inner connection with ourselves that we were once ignoring and suppressing. We've actually taken time to connect, to be, to heal, to face. We've begun the process of being the spiritual warrior from the inside. And no, the warrior is not here to fight anything, but to face everything. That's the job of the awakening journey right now. It takes courage. That's why I refer to the beings undertaking this journey as warriors, spiritual warriors. Not fighting. They're doing something harder than fighting. They're facing. It takes way more courage to get into that level of authenticity with self. But. I've spoken a little bit about the elemental kingdom. And I've spoken a little bit about how we're going to limit ourselves potentially because we're going to go, well, I can't see it and seeing's believing, Now you understand more of that depth. That you don't have to wait for your eyes to pick it up. You have to wait for your being to pick you up, to energetically connect with you as a wholeness. When that happens, now you can energetically connect with the multidimensional nature of the universe. And now your eyes will make it real because your energetic structure resonates, responds, validates, feels, perceives at the level of multidimensionality. You're no longer separated into this tiny compartment called the false matrix. That was your only viewpoint. You've actually got to get out of that viewpoint in order to step into the wholeness that you're about to perceive life from. I always save the best for last. This is something you need to know about all Kerry K videos. And I promise you, I'm not doing it intentionally. I'm not doing it to keep you here. I'm doing it because this is just the nature of the flow. You can ask any member of the Plasma Light Tribe. It's right there at the end. It's like the last couple minutes. That's where the whole conversation comes together and the real whammy comes in that shifts your reality. Okay, this for me is it. I don't know if this is it for you, but for me, this is it. The sky whales and the sky ocean and the sky beings and the sky dolphins, and there's an entire ocean. Yes, this is what I'm saying. There in the sky, there are sylphs who are in the process of cleaning the sky. They're kind of like sky sprites, sky fairies. There are all or most of the oceanic creatures in ethereal form up there in the sky. We have a body of water that we call the ocean. There is a body of ether above us. And that ethereal body we look at as the sky and say, oh, well, it's empty. except for a couple of clouds. Sometimes the clouds, you're going to see them take certain shapes, and sometimes those shapes are direct conversations from that elemental kingdom, that elemental world, because yes, the elemental world extends into the sky beings. And yes, there are also elementals that we haven't even seen there in the ocean, under the seas. Do you know that? The things that we see, the fish, the dolphin, the shark, the whale, etc., those are in our bandwidth of vision. And there is so much more that we haven't yet seen. I can't wait for our vision to really get switched on. And as we shift into 5D, that's going to become more and more apparent. We do have a marker point, which is called Ascension. Right now, we're in the process of Ascension. Once we hit the marker point called Ascension, which is marked by a great solar flash from the sun, I'll do another video talking about that. Then what's going to happen is we completely shift, completely physically, in the physical form, shift into that 5D vibratory realm, and then our eyes will very easily see the mermaids that are part of the elemental kingdom beneath the ocean, the other consciousness that's under the ocean, as well as those that are in the sky. We'll be communing with them, interacting with them. And guess what we're going to say? We're going to say, damn it, all this time, I was looking for life from other planets, not even knowing that there were worlds of beings living here within our realm that I couldn't have even dreamt of, let alone connected with. This world is going to become a full dynamic vibratory field of living consciousness, and you'll be a part of it as living consciousness. Do you see what you're a part of? Do you see the kingdom you're beginning to tune into by starting here, tuning into you? Reach out your hand if you need support. Want support. Plasma Light Tribe. That's why I created that sacred container, that sacred space, where we can do that level of energetic work again, when you feel called. For now, I hold you in so much love. From my heart, all the way. Feel it. Take a moment, take a breath. From my heart, all the way to yours. So much love.